Okay, so I'm actually getting pretty pleased with the way this app is going. The drawback there is it's easy for me to get carried away. So when I do the demo, and really the demo is the best part here, I'm gonna have to gloss over certain things, like how I got the GPS coordinates out of a JPEG. Those things I'm just gonna kind of copy and paste, and I'll offer you an explanation, but I'm gonna try to just demonstrate the foundational concepts. So today, lines get blurry. We're talking about forms which appear on the client side, and we're talking about validations, which can also happen on the client side. Here we're talking about validations on data on the server side. So now we're going back and forth, right? Used to be hard client side, hard server side. Now things are starting to mix up. So yeah, here's the day. Today is what I've been promising. You'd be able to take your phone, take a picture, upload it to the server, add a description, and just have it appear next in the timeline. So that's what I'm going to demonstrate today. We are going to do that with the help of a form. This is where it kind of gets complicated. A little bit beyond beginner, but I'll try to simplify it as much as possible. We'll talk about we'll talk a little bit about HTTP, at least in the context of the methods you can call or the verbs you can perform on from a client on a server. Talk about what happens when I take the picture, when it's loaded on my form and I press submit or I press post. What happens on the Sinatra side, right? So things are starting to overlap more and more and more. And we're going to assure when that data gets to me, we're going to make sure that it does actually have GPS coordinates and that a description was provided. So very minimal validations, but we want to make sure those things are there. Otherwise, I don't want to post it on my site. Okay, so form data, example of a American income tax form. We've been using Tux up until this point to interact with the database through Active Record. Now we are going to provide the user on the client side in the browser the opportunity to interact with the database and ultimately perform CRUD operations: create, read, update, and delete. So we do that with this new HTML element, the form element, of which there are two very important attributes. You can't escape these attributes. They must be there. Well, no, that's not true. I always say these like sweeping statements and then I realize, no, that's not true. In our case, yes, these have to be there. We're talking about an action, which tells the server to tell Sinatra, what action do I take on this thing? And this actually really literally links up to actions RB in this case. What we define here is talking to actions RB. The second one, this one's a little bit more obscure, and there's really only two you can use here. There's get and there's post. What's the difference? Weird thing. And where they come up with these names, I don't know. HTTP is a very old protocol, and no one really knows what people were thinking when they named these things. So it's kind of been lost to time, and now it's just like sorcery. And we're looking through these old standards and all this kind of stuff and just trying to like rehash the ways of old, right? That's what this is. We can do two things, two methods: get, post. Close the form like any other. And inside that form, well, we'll get to that in just a second. So the method tells us how the form will be processed. We're talking about this method here. What's going to happen to it? The get method is most obvious. Here's a good example. We're just going to go to google.com and I'll show you what a get method looks like. Where is this? Conway's Game of Life. I should try to get my page on Wikipedia, see if I get some traffic. This is a GET request. All this plainly visible stuff. You can kind of see artifacts of what you're trying to search there, right? So we've got a few things delimited by a question mark, which actually starts or gives you the start of the GET request. Then you've got a whole bunch of different codes. Who knows what these things are? Like really, only Google knows what these things are. This is probably for like tracking ads and selling advertisement, all that kind of stuff. You get all the way to the end here, and you get to where I actually ask something. So just like a variable, right? Q gets equal to Conway's space game of life. Actually, no, that's not a space. That's the apostrophe, %27s. You got to have some way to encode this, sending it as a plain part of your URL. Because you can't have something like this, danssite.com. These things don't get transmitted. That's the explanation for, where'd you go? That's the explanation for that %27s, just an escape character. Okay? This is how you send your information to the database. Post, by contrast, this one's a little less obvious. Post, they say it's not visible to the user, but I'm going to show you where you can see it. It's not plainly visible. This all gets part of that request from your client, all gets wrapped up nicely and presented to the server, which then passes it on to your Sinatra application. In practice, these things have come to do two different things. Get's usually just in case you want to read, right? And even then, I don't use get that often. I prefer post in general. You want to get some information out of the database, you use get. You want to put something into the database, you use post. Get is plainly visible. You can see the query. I said Conway's Game of Life. That was passed on to Google's whatever applications there. They read their database. They brought back these search results, presented them to me, the user. If I wanted to add something, say I want to index my website, these are typically posts. And you'll go in there, you'll fill out a form, and you press submit, and that, not secretly, it's still visible, but it's just not readily apparent. Get receives information, post puts information. That's only confusing because there's also a put method, right? Puts, that one updates stuff. Like, right? See, the stuff is lost to time. Why did they come up with these names? I have no idea. Wikipedia might actually know. So the action is the other part. So we're still talking about that form element on your web page or in your ERB document. The action attribute matches the route in your actions.rb file. So for example, you want to sign up a new user, you would define /signup, or you would say, initially you would say get quote /signup quote do end actions.rb. Without that, you see Sinatra doesn't know this ditty, right? Just to show you where we're coming from here. Same with login. A route defined in your actions.rb. This is what you enter as the action attribute in the form you create to collect data from your user. So, first step, we actually need this form, which is what I'm going to do as part of the demo. So we don't need to spend too much on this, except to mention that we kind of gloss over this, but a lot of good validation can happen on the client. And if there's time, maybe we'll do that rather than let the database do it. It's good to make sure that the data is good before you even receive it. Okay, so here's, we've seen our form. I'm just going to escape because it's a little bit easier. Here's our form tag. And naturally, inside of this form, you're going to need all sorts of different text boxes or check boxes or radio buttons, all this kind of stuff, file pickers, right? Because we want to be able to upload a photo that we take on our cell phone. We get down to here, and we start talking about those inputs. And these typically come in two parts. I find in practice it's good to wrap these in divs and apply styling classes, all this kind of thing. But we have two things here. We have a label, which right here, username. And then we have the box that allows the user to enter in information. So this is just one type of many different text boxes. Some important attributes, actually these are all the important attributes. When you're creating a form, when you're doing everything, at a minimum, I'd say you're going to make it look like this in some form. You could probably get away without this ID username, but even that's good practice. So just throw it in there. Use this as a template when you're creating something. You don't want a text box, though. Maybe you want something different. Maybe you want to collect an email, which is actually just a text box. Same with the password, but we can apply different types to these different inputs. Here's plain text. What do you think would happen if we said this is a password input? How's it going to behave differently? Exactly. It'll show you the bullet, right? Same with email. And email does some of that light validation that I was talking about, right? We're going to be talking about validating data going into the database. We can do a little bit of this preliminary validation. We can make sure that the user did, in fact, enter an email and just give a little message if it doesn't match that pattern. Here's text, just normal text. Also, select file. What are there some good ones? I don't actually use checkboxes that much. What other good ones are there? I'm trying to think. Yeah, we'll get to it. We'll see if we find some others. So here's a password input. It's a good idea to pick a good one because especially when you're talking about mobile, if you're entering in an email, your phone keyboard, screen keyboard is going to show you an @ sign just to make it easier, right? These are the kind of things that the browser clues into in making a better user experience. So try to leverage that wherever possible. So finally, okay, now this is the action part, right? So we're still talking, or were we talking about action? We talked about the form element with the form tag. We talked about 2 attributes, method attribute and action attribute. Method can be get or post. Action links up to actions.rb. So here's a couple of examples in your actions.rb file. Everyone at a minimum has this one already. So whenever the user lands on your homepage, this is the action that's going to get called. Now, when we're talking about sending data to the server, we're talking about posting in this case, we have to define a similar route. So in that actions.rb, it's going to be post, and then on the client side, there's going to be a form where the action says /signup. These things are talking directly to each other. Give me the data from the form, process it, send the response back to the client, the browser. So to get this data, this is all data that you're collecting in a form. We have a special hash called params, just short for parameters, like you're passing parameters to a method that you defined on an object. You're sending data from the form. All the keys are going to be the name that you applied in the form element on your screen. And it's going to contain those data. So you have an email entry form, an email text box of sorts, and you have a password text box. They're stored in this special hash. You pass it the key, and you can retrieve the value that's been stored in there. This all comes as part of that post, when in this case, the user is signing up. From there, in this case, we're just taking this new data. The user provided an email. The user provided a password. We're in the sign-up route, so let's create a new user. We didn't quite save it yet. We'll see more why as we go forward. So this is all part of data validation. We're kind of stopping. So we're going to create this user, and we're just going to keep them out of the database, just temporarily. Let's perform some tests. Let's see if this data is valid. Active record, and this is another reason why I just love active record. I'm singing the praises of Ruby all the time. Really, why am I programming in JavaScript? I know why, but this is what I do. So Ruby gives you a bunch of methods, or active record gives you a bunch of methods that just let you, apply certain restrictions to data going into your database. And another great thing about Ruby is that just even as amateur programmers, or beginner programmers, you can probably guess what's happening here. We're validating on the username and the email columns inside the database, And we're just making sure that the user actually provided something. This can't be blank, can't be two empty strings, it can't be a quote with a bunch of blank spaces. All this stuff would trigger that presence, right? Nil and blank and empty strings. If the data provided by the user, this is the user that was passed right back here. So we're collecting the data. We're trying to create that object with user.new. By the time we press save, or we attempt to save, that user, well, he didn't provide anything. It's an empty string, or he just pressed space in the box a whole bunch of times. This is going to set an error. And it's going to say, no, can't save it, returns false. You take the error message, you give it to the user as part of your view. This will all be part of the example. So, and again, this database stuff, I feel for you guys. Here's where we actually tried to save it. So we're kind of setting things up. We want to make sure the user gave us an email. Probably want to make sure it's unique, right? We don't want two people having the same email. Let's try to save it. If we save, we redirect to whatever page we want. If we fail for some reason, if this attempt, user.save, doesn't return true, returns false, jumps down to here, okay, give the user another chance. Maybe this email's already taken. Maybe the passwords didn't match, something. Okay, and that's what we're doing. We're going to create the form in this application I've been building, and we're going to collect that data. It's going to process it, draw out the coordinates, and set everything up so that you can just do this on the fly. And at the end, I'll push it to Heroku. Yes?
I was just wondering, so you defined the class in your Ruby file for this field, for this form? If that's what you define the class?
No. No, I think the root of the question is, does the form correspond to a record in the data, or a table in the database? Or am I overcomplicating this?
I'm just curious how it links up to the main portion of your, we had the index.
Okay.
Underneath that.
Good question. Very good question. So here's the form. Beginning tag, open tag, 2 attributes. The method, don't concern yourself too much with this one just now. Just assume method always equals post. What links the form to your application is this action, right? So whatever you put in here is going to be something like /signup. That's the example we've been using. So let's skip on down to here. Here's in our actions.rb file. Post, method post, action, sign up. Whatever's inside that form, when you press send, is going to end up here. And something's going to happen to it before this do and this end, right? And this is what happened in our case. So where do we go? We create a new user. And then we attempt to save it. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense. I'm just curious where that goes. You know how we had for Instagram, or big Instagram thing, we have the header, and underneath we have the main part of the.
So where does the form actually go?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do that. That's a good point to start our demo. First things first, let's give our user a form through which to submit information. Now I'm gonna start with some very simple examples, just show you the raw output, and then I'm gonna do some copying and pasting because there's a lot of details here. But let's create that form. So here's our application. Let's just make sure it's running well. I pushed my preparatory work to GitHub, not GitHub, to Heroku. And I noticed that my pictures were disappearing. That's just one of those DevOps things. I'm not entirely sure, but they last for a little while. Then the server goes to sleep. It wakes back up again. No more pictures. I don't know what that is. But this is where we left off. So I think last day, this is our big contribution. We created a couple of instance methods to determine, is this fresh, or is it, getting kind of stale? So we needed some way to add a new entry. So over here, I'm going to put this in views. And since it's always a good idea to give yourself descriptive, sensible names, I'm going to call this new.erb. Let's dress it up a bit. So a header. Let's put a very simple form. And I'm going to totally just copy and paste a lot of this stuff, but we're going to do the bare minimum first, just for demonstration, and then we're gonna go nuts. Form. All right. We don't even need to pay attention to this right now. So this is pretty much exactly what you've seen on the slide so far, right? Got a very simple form, got an action. This needs to connect to actions.rb. And this is all I've got in actions.rb. So we're going to start, increasing the functionality. This is a post method. Cache. Do. And we don't really need to do anything right now. Let's just make sure that Sinatra knows this ditty. So let's come over to here. We'll refresh, because it's a good idea to go slow. /new. Oh, wait. Did I say cache or did I say new? Sinatra isn't going to know this ditty. Watch. There we are. I actually need to do this. I'm getting ahead of myself. /new. Big oversight. I actually need to render this view. So this is what I just created. New.rb, my minimal form. Like, you're not even going to see anything. You're just going to see post new cache. I need to actually render this thing. Okay. Let's try that again. Post new cache. So I still got my mangy old raccoon tipping over my green bin. I have 3 compost bins. This green bin the city's rolling out, I got to say, I got an issue with that. As a taxpayer, paying like $7 more a month for something, for all the rotting stuff I've got in my backyard. This was probably my neighbors. This is one of their initiatives. Okay, so but here's our view. And because it's in this layout, we can still see my raccoon, my mascot over here. Let's actually get some data. So I'm going to do a little bit more copying and pasting. And this is going to be exactly the same thing as what you saw on the slides. Just customized for this situation. So here's my label and the start of my form, because every time I do this, every time I post a new cache or create something in my database, I want to record 4 things. The description applied to it, the image I'm attaching to the payload, the coordinates that I calculate and draw out of the EXIF data contained in the JPEG, and what was the other one? There's one more. What am I missing here? We'll figure it out. Okay, so let's take a look at what this is. This is going to cause a problem. Can anyone see why? What do you think the error is going to be? Let's find out. Undefined method description for nil class. What's my nil class? It's telling you the line right here. There's something on this line. It says is nil. It doesn't know what description means. Right there. I need to assign an instance variable. Cache equals cache.new. Just a little trick of the web developer's trade. Just set up an empty one because you don't know if it's going to save. You're going to make a whole bunch of validations. Maybe the email is already taken. You need some way to relay errors, and it's always going to be as one of these cache things, as you'll see. Actually, yeah, no, let's wait for that. So here's my raccoon way down here. Oh, that looks terrible. We're going to have to wait for some styling, I think. But can everybody see that? It kind of sucks, right? All right. So right now, I can type stuff in. I can press enter. It sends it to here, sends it to cache, and it just does nothing. Because I didn't tell it to do anything. /cache. Right? So there's that connection. Here's the form I just created in new. So this is something I want to present to the user. When the user presses that new or says, I want to make a new post, this is what's displayed. When I hit enter back here, it's the cache that gets called over here in actions RB right here. I need to do something with this. Let's just take a look at see what's inside of params. This is that special hash I was talking about. This thing contains all of the data that you're passing along this post payload. So let's say params inspect, because the last thing you have, in a block of code is what gets returned to the calling context. Let's see what happens. I should be able to press refresh. Oh, no, not refresh. I got to put a bunch of junk in here. And there we go. So there's just a hash, right? Nothing magical. You guys have seen this. Key value pairs. Description. It knows its description because of this name. That's the key in the hash. The value in the hash is whatever I set inside of that field. I'm going to index the hash now. I just want to see what the user entered in as a description. Just like that. So I refresh again, so I'm still sending that same stuff. This is just taking that data I entered into my form, refreshing. It's asking me, do I really want to do this? Yes, I do. Continue. I indexed it. I drew it out. So this is the stuff I'm likely going to be presenting to my user. This is my description for the cache. Okay. Crystal clear? Yeah? All right. Well, now we're going to jump ahead about a million places. No, actually, one more thing. We're going to keep going slow here. Hang on. What I want to try to do, though, is I want to, at this point, create a new object in my database. So let's say cache, no, let's say, yeah, it is actually, sorry. Cache equals cache dot new. I have to give it a description. So I'm passing this. I'm just taking data out of the information I've been provided. And let's see what terror we can do when we save this. This is going to wreak havoc on my whole interface. It's just going to get messed up. Watch. Trying to create a new cache. So if the cache saves, if it's now inside the database, I just want to go back to my home page. So on a successful post, this is a rule of thumb. You saw me see that confirm form resubmission. We don't want users to be able to do that. We don't want them to accidentally send duplicate data. So whenever we do a successful post, we always redirect. That makes it impossible. If this thing didn't go into the database, I want to give the user an opportunity to make a correction, maybe add a description or take a photo, something like that. So I say, okay, just show me the new page again. Now, if you've really been paying attention, and I don't blame you if this is like a little bit obscure, this is why I made it a point to just give it an empty new, right? This is a really low maintenance way just to make sure that cache exists, that it's not nil. Because someone's going to come along here, is going to post, and is definitely going to make a mistake. We're going to have to render that very same view again. This time, though, we've got a cache object that actually contains some valuable data. And that data is the errors. So I'm going to show you what happens without validation. Let's save this. It's not going to be pretty. Watch what happens. Okay, so description, I just said a bunch of junk in here. Oh. So good. Oh, here we are. A bunch of junk in here, fresh find. This should not have been able to happen, right? If the user forgets to put in a description, that's one thing, but the user forgets to put in a photo, that means we're missing two things. Photo and actual coordinates. So if I click on Google right now, I think it's going to hover me over Mexico somewhere. Watch. Or, nope, New Mexico. Well, there you have it. So we gotta prevent this from happening. And we're going to do a very bare minimum validation. Validations are an active record thing. So we've been talking about front end, we've been talking about routes, now we're going back to active record and talking to the database. In my cache, I just want to make sure of a few things. The first thing I want to make sure of is that validate, how does it go? I can never remember this. Presence, description, validate, how does it go? Shoot, hang on, gotta look at my notes. Oh, much easier than that, shoot. Validate description. True, I need that to be there. That's all that's happening there. And there's tons of different validations. Just make sure it's there. Okay, let's give it a try. So if I do this right, I hope, I'm going to go to my new path here. Oh, what happened? I messed something up. Hang on. Mess something up here. What is it? Oh, you see that difference there? The second one was the copy and paste. Top one, I missed an S. Just like that. Okay, let's try it again. Okay, post new cache. I'm just going to hit spacebar. This should not work. Hit enter. Oh, yeah, there it goes. Where's my errors? Oh, I haven't added them yet. So now we're going to add something to the form, the new form that I just created. So whenever this fails, we're talking about actions.rb here. I say cache.save and this returns true or false. If it returns false, it doesn't mean that cache disappears. Inside of this object are contained error messages generated by the database. So we can take those error messages and give our user a friendly helping hand here. So created an unordered list. I'm looking inside of that cache object, and I'm iterating over the full messages contained within this array, presumably. Every time I get a new message, I print it to the screen. So if I do this right, let's try it again. It's not going to look very good, but there it is. Description can't be blank. Image can't be blank. This image does not contain GPS information. These are the kind of errors that I want to generate. Okay, now we're getting to the skip ahead part. I'm going to apply some styles, a form, and then we're going to kind of fill in the blanks. So this is how I made it look this afternoon. You're going to see it's going to be a lot more complicated. Here's my basic view. Actually, we'll leave that there just so you can compare. Slightly more structured and wrapped in this, this section. We'll take this out. Okay, so a quick tour. Header, here's those errors that I just added. This is going to give the feedback to the user. Here's my action. This is what it used to look like. The exact same thing. I just have to put this in here because I'm attaching a file, a photograph. How do you know these things? You just got to try and then bang your head against the wall for an hour, and then you check Stack Overflow, and that's how I learn. Right? I know it's possible, so I just go and find out how to do it. We've got 3 fields. Well, 2 fields. Description, that file picker right here, type file, and it's only going to accept JPEGs. That's all I want to deal with. Most phones just take JPEGs, right? This is for mobile first, remember. Finally, after that, I've got a submit button that says post. Let's see what it looks like without style. I don't want to resubmit. Hang on. Oh, there's another thing we need. We need a link. So far, not very fancy, right? We've got our description. We've got JPEG with coordinates. Now we can pick a file. And it's only going to show you images. So I got a few pictures there. We can pick from any of these. Okay, so we're not going to do that quite yet. Let's apply some styles. This is what I made it look like. As always, in public/styles/CSS, so I'm going just to tack it all onto the end of that document. Some brand new stuff. Refresh. Now, what happened? Did I not save? Oh, wait, what am I doing? Okay, so not loading the file. Let's find out why. No, that's fine. Sources, all the files that you provide are stored in sources, and you just saw the raccoon. Look at that. Why is that not saving? Okay, so I actually have no idea what's going on here. I made the change. I saved the file, right? There's my buttons, my input. Saved, definitely saved. Server restarted. There we go. Jeez. So not that much fancier, a little easier to read, right? I'm just trying to make it so it's easy to see on your phone. Actually a couple of glaring omissions. I've got no way to get back to the home page. So it'd be nice to be able to, just apply a link here so I can click on this hashtag. So let's do that. Just a little bit more fast forward stuff here. And this is in layout. So I'm going to get just change this up a little bit. Really all I changed there, if you look, this is the original. Whoops. Oh, hilarious. Now I just overwrote my change. Hang on. This is the new one. So the addition is with this link, an anchor tag going back home. Okay, so let's take a look there. Actually, there's one more thing as well. Nope, that's that. Okay. So now I should be able to just hover over this thing. Oh, it's not styled nice. Okay, so that's kind of a problem. The other problem is I need a button. I need someone to say, okay, look, press this button and I can add a new post. So more copy and paste. And I'm going to add this right at the top of my index.erb. So this is the one that everybody sees when they come to the site. Everything's working good, right? It's just put in posts. All I'm going to do is just add a link. So here's ahref, send me to this new path, the one I just defined and had to enter manually. And send me, it's just, here's the message. Let's capitalize that in like that. Okay, see what that looks like. So that's my button. This is what I came up with. I'm not a designer. I just try and go with what kind of looks good, sort of. This thing's kind of bugging me. Let's see if I can fix that. All right, hopefully there's a fix in there somewhere. There it is. Okay, so looking a little bit more in the spirit of which I originally intended. Okay, so far so good. Got to add a couple more things. Again, some more fast forward kind of stuff here. The way I'm getting this data out of the JPEG is with a gem. So I'm going to give you the broad explanation here. There's a gem called gem xif_r. The R stands for reader. I'm not entirely sure what xif stands for, but this is the metadata contained inside of your JPEGs. And if you set your phone, you give it this permission, it will read the GPS data into the file. So there, now this is where it kind of gets delicate because I got to know where to include these files. This is all that hand wavy stuff, giving you a very broad description. Every time your server starts, one of the very first things it does is it reads this file and sets up the environment for your application. So to use this xif_r gem, I need to include it here. And I just say require xif_r. Now, no matter where I go inside of my Sinatra application, I'll be able to access this. Now watch what happens. This is going to crash. It says there's a problem in config.ru. The reason is in this one very rare case, I actually need to restart my server. It only loaded environment RB one time. I made a change. I required xif_r. It's not going to read this file again unless I refresh or restart the server. So now I come back here. Oh, my mistake. Sorry. Actually, I also have to run bundle install. I added it to my gem file, but I did not actually install the software. So if you look up this is all the white ones are the ones that are already installed. I installed this new gem. Okay. Let's refresh that again, or start it in this case. Okay, everything's good. So this boot error should disappear. Wonderful. Okay, so behold, it's magic. All right, it's all gone. Okay, where am I at? So I've got the form. I've improved the interface so that I can accept these things. I still need some validations. Right now, I'm only validating on description. So a couple things I need to do. So get my notes. I've got to improve upon this. So I can get rid of this. I don't need this anymore. Don't need that anymore. Don't need my styles anymore. I don't think I need that. Layout, probably not. We'll leave that one open. What I'm looking for is this guy. This is my model. And that's where I'm saying, okay, you better put a description in here, otherwise you can't insert it into the database. The next thing, validates image. Presence true. I don't want anyone to post unless a file has been attached to it. The next one, I'm going to use a slightly different method because I want to, well, let me show you. Oh yeah, look at that. Almost made that same mistake. Thank you. Coordinates. Coordinates also have to be true. The problem is here, I need to enter a more descriptive message. I want to tell the user, you got to turn on this GPS functionality. I just want to give some sort of short blurb. There might be a better way to do it, but to do this, I actually had to use this convenience method. There's probably a better way. Validates presence of, so I don't need this anymore. This is nice, confusing, I'm not sure. I think it's nice. I can see why you would say it's confusing. But if this one fails, if the coordinates are not there, I want it to say coordinates are not recorded in image. So maybe there's a more descriptive way. I'm not entirely sure. But how do you tell, in a few words, turn this on in your phone or else get a new phone? I'd be surprised if most phones can't do this. I think this has been like standard since like 2007. That might be a bit of an exaggeration, but it's been a long time. So, okay, validations are done. We can even see that. We can say post. Coordinates not recorded in the image. Description can't be blank. Image can't be blank. Rusty nails. Choose file. Actually, I don't have any rusty nails. Shoot. Okay, whatever this image is. Post. Kind of wish I had some. Oh, coordinates not recorded in the image. And the image can't be blank. We're set up. Everything's ready to go. We're not actually doing anything with the data yet. So now we're coming back to actions.rb. So we're getting that form, that information from the form directly. And we're going to pluck it out. And we're going to try to create a new cache object. This is where it gets really hand-wavy. Watch what happens. So I'm going to write this method, and you're going to see what it takes to get EXIF data and format it in a sensible way that makes sense to Google Maps. That was really the challenge here, and that effort culminated in this. Remember that EXIF gem? EXIF gem allows me to do this. It allows me to look at the user, this file that I've saved to disk, and allows me to draw a few things out. The GPS latitude. Now, I don't know this. I'm not a geographer. But when you get GPS or this latitude, longitude, you get degrees, minutes and seconds in that order in an array. So I get the degrees, I add them to the minutes divided by 60, and add that to the seconds divided by 1 hour, I guess in this case. Minutes, seconds. Just taking all that information and getting that data that looks like this. That's all I'm after. That XF data is all stored in rational numbers. It's really weird stuff. And it's just, just searching Stack Overflow, Google. I figured out how to get these numbers, which allow me to open Google Maps. That was that whole thing there. See what I'm talking about? Super hand wavy. So apart from that very basic introduction, you can see how this can get complicated fast. Where I start off though, I just create a new cache. I get that description from the cache. I take the file that the user gave me. The file is stored in the params hash, or at least the information of where it's stored on disk. So I get the temp file where it's stored now. I create a new file, or I get the file name, so I can put it into an uploads directory, and I save it. And then when I get that location where it's saved on disk, upload/mypicture.jpg, I assign that to my cache object. This is going into the database. This is just saying the file is here on the file system. Go get it if you need it. So then I calculated all those coordinates. If I'm successful, I get to here. Cache.coordinates now equals this string. That string right there. This is the computed or the potential version of this. That's where that comes from. And that came from the image itself. So then again, if you want to see this, this is all on my GitHub. So please take the time to look it over. After that, I try to save it. So this is where, this is where the rubber meets the road. I save it. It's going to try to write it. It's going to check those validations. Did it give me a description? Yes. Did it give me an image? Yes. Was I able to extract coordinates? Yes. Go back home and show the user the post just posted. No. Fix the mistake. Try again. Okay. So I think we're missing something, but let's try it. So I call that Rusty Nails. I think it's actually a salt shaker in front of my TV. I think that's what it was. And I say this because I was kind of playing with it early on, trying to figure out how to get this stuff out. And it's just been kicking around my hard drive ever since. So post that. Oh, it's uploading. See the file down in the corner? It's uploading. Ah, no such directory uploads. I've got no place to send this. I got the image, I just uploaded from my machine, but this directory doesn't exist. I've got to create this directory. Forgot. Okay. I'll show you the command line way to do that. Make dir public uploads. That's the directory I need. So now it's there. You should see it. Here, this is the one I just created. Nothing in there yet. Let's try it again. I think I might have to repost that one. Okay, so post. Let's try it again. There we go. Okay, so it's still an obvious problem here, but I bet you if I scroll down and get to the post I just made, there it is. So if you click on that, then that actually goes to my house. So don't anybody look. No, come on over anytime. You can see my rocket stove. It's awesome. Did I show you the rocket stove video? Yeah. Oh man, I just got permission from my church to do this with a friend. We're going to build a wood gasifier and make charcoal and then burn off the poisonous gas to run a lawnmower engine. I'm actually going to use this to gather materials from the community because we go out to Cochrane. So that's what we're planning on. We got all sorts of crazy stuff going on. Sorry, there was one more thing I wanted to do. Oh yeah, we got to reorder this, right? No one wants to come and see the oldest post first. That doesn't make any sense. We want to see the brand new one right at the top. So let's take that. Come to our actions RB. And we can use this order method. And I just want, how does this work? Let's see if I can get it right the first time. Created at descending. That should do it. So I'm just taking whenever this thing was made, the most recent ones come out first in the list. The older ones get pushed to the back. Let's try it again. Okay, salt shaker at the top. There's that error one. We're going to deal with these, erroneous entries when we start actually doing more CRUD operations. We've done the read. We've done the create. At this point, we can't update or delete. So this is to come. Is that everything?
Is the image in the database, or is that?
Nope, just save to disk. This is actually an ongoing debate. Which is better, to store this kind of thing in a database or store it on the file system? Let the file system do its job. I like storing it on the file system and storing reference in the database, right? Just give it a directory path. There is a problem, and there's a drawback with this, because then you have to know and be able to configure that path, or at least.
Would memory be like if you end up with a whole bunch of posts and it's going to be?
Yeah, that's probably a fair criticism, but memory is going to be an issue either way. And I do believe that the file system would probably handle that kind of management better. This is just kind of naive opinion, though, right? I think it's better. And a lot of gems that kind of package this functionality do it that way as well. But yes, thank you. Good question. Okay, yeah, one more thing. So now I actually want to do this. As I said, I'm going to use this thing. I think I've got all the changes I want, but I'm doing that final step, and this is kind of the biggest barrier, right? You can build a prototype. It's going to take you a couple of weeks. It's going to look awesome. You try to bring it to market. There's, oh man, the last 10% of that thing is going to take you months, if not years. I like to start kind of from the deployment stage, work my way backwards. So when I'm developing a product, I always push to a production environment as soon as something even remotely ready is ready. So we're using Heroku for that. And I think I still have it installed here. Okay, it looks good. I got to log in first, so I'm going to be talking to that server. Heroku, log in. Okay. Oh, come on. Try that again. Don't know my own password. Let's do some copying and pasting. There we go. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, there we go. First thing I need to do, because Heroku is actually just drawing this off of its own Git repository, I need to make my commits. So I'm going to see what kind of things I changed. I created a new ERB file, a new ERB file, added some stuff to the gem file, did a bundle install, changed some of the actions, lots of good stuff here. So let's just commit this all in one go. Git commit, actually no, git add, because I need to get this thing. It's not currently being tracked. So I say git add period, git status, now everything's green, nothing is lingering. I say git commit minus M, get demo results. Okay. Remote, got a few remotes. Got one set up at GitHub, new project. Please, as I said, make your own app, make it better. I'd love to see it. I can push to GitHub. Okay, it's gone. I'm going to get pushed to Heroku. And this is where I always have to hold my breath. These things can be hard to diagnose. Ah, come on. Oh, you got to be kidding me. Okay, the problem is I pushed all my preparatory work, and now it wants me to merge my prep work with the work I did in demo. So here's what I'm going to do. It just so happens I took notes in my README file on how to set up a new Heroku. Okay. This sucks. You know what? This is lame. I'm so disappointed. Hang on. I feel like I'm cheating you if I just do it this way. Okay, first things first. Let's give ourselves a fresh environment. Bear with me just a moment. Okay, so I actually did push this earlier. I'm just setting up the database, and we're going to do a live test. Oh, no, come on. All right, let's try that again. So I'm just setting up a new server. I want to do, because I kind of have my official server. Oh, come on. You got to be kidding me. Okay, tell you what, we're going to do a live demo. I've got to fix this. Any questions? I'm sure there's tons of questions. Okay. I'm going to do the lecture summary. I'm going to try to fix my whole Heroku issue, and then we're going to see if I can actually take a picture in the camera. So give me about, 45 minutes, and we'll get to that. Yes, question?
So in my work, we use Unbounce as like a landing page tool.
Mhm.
And one of the forms we created, it takes all of the field information and then puts it into the web address.
Okay.
That seems really ghetto.
That's making everything into a get. And gets have their limits. I'm not sure. It might be, is it 2,056 characters now? I'm not sure. You can only go so far, right?
Well, and the part of the problem we're running into is that there's sensitive information in that form.
That's pretty amateur. That's why I love Lighthouse Labs. You guys know more than those guys now, whoever built that. Any other questions? Okay, I'm going to resolve my problem, and I hope to be able to wow you with what I've accomplished here.